I'm going to start the canvas Little Boys Are Made Of. This will be a companion piece to the canvas I did a year or so ago called Little Girls Are Made Of. And the first thing I did was to take my 16 by 20 canvas and took a ruler and marked off the sections. Oh, this canvas is kind of big to show under the camera, but I decided, what my sections were going to be. They're similar to the one I did before, and then just did a pencil line. For instance, this line here was 4 inches from the top, so I just made a couple little, the ruler on, made a couple little marks at 4 inches to use as guides. And then using those guides, I took the ruler and laid it across and just drew a pencil line over. Once you've got all your sections marked out, the next step will be to paint each of these, and they're each a different color. And they're straight lines, so I'm using some tape to do that. And I didn't have any painting tape when I first started this, so I just used some Scotch tape. But you can use the blue painting tape. I'll do that on the next section. So I put my tape along the line, so I'm blocking out this top 4-inch section on the canvas. And a lot of times you'll have trouble with the paint running under a tape line. And especially on a canvas like this that's springy, it's sometimes hard to get to run your fingernail along it and get a good adhesion. So what I've done is taken some sealer, and you can use a matte varnish or any kind of multi-purpose sealer. And I happened to pick up this bottle of Traditions Glazing Medium. Any of them are okay. You just want something that will seal that edge of that tape and dry clear. So I'm just taking this brush and I'm straddling the tape and the bare canvas so that I'm getting that edge of that tape sealed. And I take 2 sides of this rectangular area that we're going to base in, and so I just sealed all those edges. And then you can either let it dry naturally, or I've got a little hairdryer here, and I will speed up the drying process with the hairdryer. So I can tell once this is dry because the gloss goes away and this glazing medium dries sort of to a matte finish. So once that's good and dry, you can then take your paint color, and I'm going to use the Deco Art Americana. This is called Light Lime, and I'm going to use that on a couple sections of this canvas. We want kind of a patchwork effect. And you can use either a large brush, or I was going to try this little paint roller and see how that does. This one is called Art Minds. I either got it at probably like Hobby Lobby or Michael's. And it's a little sponge paint roller. I thought this might speed up the process. It might take more work, but we'll experiment and see what this does. So I've shook up my paint, and I'm gonna put it out in kind of a long section because I want to be able to quickly fill this little roller. And then I'll start rolling that on. And I can see I need more paint, so And I'm just going to roll right over the edge of that tape. So hopefully when we lift that tape up, we'll have a nice clean edge. And again, you could just use a large flat brush to paint this in, but you can see how quick this seems to go. You get a little texture from this, but hopefully that'll soften down a little. I'm going to set my paint aside and I'm going to go ahead and roll these edges. We'll set that roller aside and let this dry a little bit. I don't want to dry it completely because I think sometimes if the paint gets too dry, it's hard to take your tape off without tearing some of your paint off. So I'm going to hit this just real lightly with a hair dryer to take out a little of the moisture. Okay, so I can see the sheen's going down, but it's not totally dry, but it also softened that texture down a little bit. I'm going to pull this tape off. And you can see we've got nice clean edges to that section. We still have some pencil lines, but I'll try to erase those later, or hopefully the next section will cover those up. So I'm just going to continue on and work each of these sections, and I'll have to jump around because since that green isn't dry, I'll come down here and work on one of these sections closer to the bottom. And this time I will use the painter's tape, see how that does. This little section here is going to be the green, so before I clean that roller out, I'm going to go ahead and tape it off. I'll go ahead and I'm going to leave that pencil line exposed, so maybe this time when I paint over it, we will be covering that. I'm going to paint the tops, tape the top, bottom, and sides. I run my fingernail down along these, but I can see as the canvas moves, that tape kind of lifts a little bit. So we've got that all taped down. I'm going to take our sealer and seal those edges. And with the sealer, it doesn't matter if it seeps under the edges of your tape because it dries clear and you're not going to see it. So that's why it's a good idea to seal the edges of your tape. And we'll dry that before we apply the green. Okay, our sealer's dry. We're going to go back to our green paint, put a little bit more out here. You can also buy little rollers at like Home Depot or Lowe's that you can use for painting trim or small areas on your wall, and some of them are more like a, maybe have a finer foam, or they're more like a roller that you use on a wall for, that has the fluffy coating for a smooth wall. So if you don't find these at your local craft store, you can get something similar at a home improvement store. So roll smooth, and you get less texture if you don't push too hard on your final rolls. Okay, so there we go. We got that painted in. I'm going to hit it with a hairdryer to get that slightly dry. And then I'm going to lift the paint tape off. And again, you can see how nice and crisp our edges are. We'll zoom in, but you can see we've got nice sharp edges on those borders. Here's where I tried to erase some pencil that I didn't have a very good eraser, so I need to go back and clean that up. But I'm going to let that dry. So I want you to go ahead and finish taping off the rest of your sections. Be sure one dries before you apply tape over it. So for instance, if I wanted to paint this one here on the side, or let me move this up. Again, we're trying to see too much in this canvas, in this little camera. So if I want to paint this side here, I want to wait until this dries, because I'm going to be applying tape over it along that edge, and tape over it, this section along the top, to block out that corner. So you need to wait for each section to dry really well before you apply the painter's tape back over it. And I need to go wash my roller out, because this is the only 2 blocks of green we're going to have on the canvas. We're also going to do some aqua and some brighter blue and some white, or a light blue. I haven't decided yet which, but it'll be some combination of these colors. I was trying to think of boy colors, so we've got a light kind of mint green, a aqua blue, and a bright blue, and some white, and I'm going to probably mix some white and blue together to come up with a lighter blue. So I'm going to go wash my roller out, and we'll be back.